I recently saw a video with the exact same subject and thought, hey, that's a great idea, I want to cover that. Only to then proceed to turn off the video before the 1-minute mark to write this script. No offense to the original creator of that video, by the way, I was just too inspired to watch the rest of it. I also think that it might be cool to watch the video after I've made this script to see if our thoughts align on it, or if they differ at all. So, if you are the person who made this video, hello! Thanks for the idea. I hope you like my take on it. If you've ever taken an economics class before, you will likely have heard of this concept of specialization. One where people will choose their singular task which they can do better than anything else, and will rely upon others to do other special tasks for them so that everything is done more efficiently overall. Economics is all about the efficient use and distribution of resources, so it should come as no surprise that this concept tends to be at the core of all fundamental classes on the subject. However, life is not an economic theory, and none of us can be happy doing one thing all the time, even if we excel at it or enjoy it. We will inevitably reach a point of burnout where we feel unfulfilled and frankly, bored with our chosen tasks. Now, I don't know about you, but nothing has ever made me drag my feet more than doing a task I know will be boring and tedious. That doesn't sound very efficient to me. One of my first jobs was as a data entry and organization specialist. Basically just clerical duties where I would do the same thing day in and day out. And for the most part, I'm actually pretty good at doing those things.
Yes. See, that's it. These. Oh my gosh.
At first, it's stimulating for me to sort and organize things into categories and make a massive pile of packets and paper disappear after being neatly filed away. However, eventually, that task becomes incredibly repetitive. No matter how much you do the work, you will always get more. And soon, the sense of accomplishment, finality, and a meaningful end becomes a Sisyphean task. Every time I would drain a massive pile of papers, a new stack of them would be dropped on my desk. Every time I felt like I had broken the shackle of the task at hand, the task would prove to me that it remained firmly locked around my ankle. I imagine in the days of the Ford manufacturing assembly line, people probably felt the same way. You clock in for 8 to 14 hours a day and do one thing for the entire day. Then you go home and drink for some stimulation before you have to do it all over again. Peasants in the medieval era of Europe got more breaks and time to themselves than the average American worker does today. Granted, the peasants of medieval Europe were likely having to do chores and other things for themselves so that they could survive things like a harsh winter or famine, but still. It goes to show that as we have specialized ourselves to make a more efficient economy, we have also lost a lot of time we take to do other very necessary tasks in our personal lives. The closer we become as an economy to achieving true specialization, the less we truly become people in a way. Sure, perhaps we are all fantastic at our chosen task, and this specialized structure provides everyone with the most ideal and cheap product to be bought and consumed. But I think that's what has always been wrong with economic models and theories. Many economists are less concerned about people as people, and more concerned about people as resources, ones which have no measurable emotions and therefore are assumed to be unfeeling machines in the hypothetical the economist has created to model how we give and receive our resources. Now, before the economists in the comment section begin to speak up about how some economic models actually do account for human emotion, I think you're missing the point here. This model does not account for human emotion and self-actualization. This idea that specialization is our route to a wealthy and high-functioning economy is also one which ignores that human beings are multifaceted creatures who need variation of purpose in order to properly function. When I had that job where I endlessly sorted paper and entered data, it did not make me happy. But you know what it did do to me? It made me more productive in other areas. I would write a lot more than I would previously. not just at home, but on the job itself after I finish my tasks. In fact, it's what I still do whenever I finish tasks at my day job. Not because I see writing as work, but more so I see it as a productive escape of the menial and boring tasks of office work. Writing is fulfilling for me, and it's also the perfect task to do when I need to look busy at my job. Because another truth about the economy and the world we live in is that even though we might work all hours of the day for our specialized tasks, those special tasks do not need to be worked all hours of the day in order to be finished. Now, this might not apply to you if you do something like manufacturing or forklift driving, where you need to pretty much be on top of your work at all hours of the day. This is more about office tasks, which people typically only work about a good 4 hours every day, and then spend the other 4 hours in pointless meetings, the bathroom, on long breaks, or just pretending to be busy while they slack off. And that's mainly due to the fact that our tools for doing certain tasks have become so unbelievably efficient that we really don't need the full day to get all of them done. About the only job where a person is always busy at all hours of the day seems to either be a manager or that one guy in the office everyone dumps their work on because they are capable of doing the work of 10 men. All of this is to basically say that human beings will never be true specialists. We will never find one singular thing that we enjoy doing day in and day out. Variety is the spice of life, as they say, and it is through this variety which we find fulfillment in our lives. Taking up hobbies, making artwork, going to the gym, playing video games, making videos, etc. I have yet to see a YouTuber whose videos are interesting and fun to watch because they are a specialized YouTuber who only does YouTube. And I think this brings me to the next portion of my thought experiment on this topic. I've not mentioned the generalist yet because I feel that it was pertinent to explore the idea of the specialist first. Most of the interesting YouTubers I watch are people who used to be something else, or who do not consider themselves to be content creators, but rather something of a different profession with a YouTube channel. The woodworking channels, the science channels, the former comedians, artists, writers, music artists, or game devs. The fact of the matter regarding YouTube and the people who make those videos is that they are multifaceted people with a wide variety of interests and life experience, which they are able to channel into unique content. And yes, there is no shortage of people who look to YouTube as a task to optimize and specialize in. The same people who seemingly can never hang on to a core audience of their own, and who will often fade into obscurity as they run dry of the advice they wish to give to others. To be fair, it was those same YouTube optimization channels which inspired me to make content of my own. I'm not here to decry the existence of people who only see YouTube as a game to be won or a formula to be solved, though. I think that sort of thing has a place on YouTube, and I would likely not be here without it. However, I also think that those optimization channels will often miss the forest for the trees when it comes to making a successful YouTube channel, and that's why their longevity as a successful channel often runs dry. Guru channels often die once they run out of things they wish to teach and talk about, and while I do not consider myself to be a guru channel, I also understand the concept. Eventually, we will all reach a point where we no longer have anything to teach, where our videos are simply repeating the same lessons in a different way. The channels which are able to stick around are the channels which, I think, are run by generalists. I'll give you an example. The most recent channel, which I consider interesting, is Pirate Software. Now, if you somehow don't know who Pirate Software is, that's a big surprise to me, considering how much they popped off in the last year. But for those who are unaware, Pirate Software is a game dev turned content creator who used to work as a hacker for the government, as well as a developer for Blizzard Entertainment. Now, at first glance, one might think that Thor, yes, that's his name, is a specialist. He covers everything in the realm of gaming and programming. However, he's not really a specialist. Sure, he is highly skilled at his special task of game development, but he is not a true specialist. He is a generalist for the fact that he makes content on YouTube and is also successful at it. He's also a community manager for that same channel. Those two things are very different tasks from game design and programming, but Thor has the same mindset when it comes to creating those things. You see, Thor is often able to articulate through his golden-throated voice, that the lessons he teaches about game development can be applied to all aspects of art. If you have never watched any of his streams or his videos, I highly recommend it. Thor is a very articulate speaker, and he's often able to condense ideas down into a 1-minute format, while also being able to get the full point across. You want to learn how to do something new? Then try teaching it to other people, and if you don't have other people around to teach it to, pretend like you do and make a PowerPoint or some other presentation as if you were teaching a new skill to someone else. Want to know how to find time to create your own art even though you work all hours of the day at your soul-grinding job? Take a nap, and then when you wake up, pretend it's a new day where you get to start working on your art. So in addition to being a hacker, a game dev, and a content creator, Thor is also a great teacher. But how is that possible? Well, it's because of a little thing called the 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule is used to describe how 20% of what we learned is used for 80% of the tasks we perform, while the other 80% of what we learn is used to perform the remaining 20% of tasks. In other words, you really only need to learn about 20% of any one particular subject or skill in order to do about 80% of the things that skill allows you to do. The most difficult part about that, however, is tracking down that 20% which will be most useful to you as a person. I personally see a parallel between that 20% and the fundamentals of any skill you would choose to learn. For writing, those fundamentals are things like story structure, characterization, and world building. For art, it's things like perspective, anatomy, and line confidence. If you have ever wondered why there seems to be some people who are just able to pick anything and everything up and just be so good at it, I would bet that this is the reason why. It's because that type of person understands how to learn new things as fast as possible. The people who are able to do everything really well are rarely ever the best at it. But it is my firm belief that anyone and everyone can be better than 90% of people at anything and everything if given enough time and effort. You see, a specialist might be able to learn everything about a given task, but a generalist can learn numerous things up to a proficiency which most people will never achieve. Additionally, the generalist can also discover and innovate where the specialist might have trouble doing so. A generalist will often bring the perspective of other skills to any subject they touch upon. A person who is a programmer but also an artist and a musician could also be a fantastic indie game dev, for example. A writer who was also a historian happens to be one of the greatest fantasy writers to have ever lived. In fact, to bring it back to this channel's main focus of writing, I think that generalists are often the best writers. There are no great writers who specialize in only writing. There are, however, highly proficient editors who do, but not writers or storytellers. Because when it comes to writing and storytelling, the writer must be able to craft a story which they are engaged with, and the only way to do something like that is to know about something other than writing. Even if you're writing something which is nonfiction, unless you're only ever writing about other writers, you must become knowledgeable in another subject to make that book. And I would also argue that a writer who exclusively writes about other writers is also a writer who is living in the shadow of better writers. Generalists make the best artists, writers, game devs, and musicians, because art is that which we use to express our lives to others. We channel our experiences, emotions, and thoughts into our art so that it can be reflected to our fellow human beings who equally experience, think, and appreciate what we make. Is it any surprise whatsoever that one cannot be a great artist without first learning about the other things life has to offer us? That we cannot learn how light hits upon an object without first observing the world around us? That we cannot write a fantastically deep and intricate fantasy world without first having a good grasp of how our own world's history works? I don't think that's a coincidence. I do think that the economic model of specialization is generally a wrong model for the economy, though, for this very reason. It fails to measure the value which is inherent in the human experience. It fails to account for humanity as a whole. It only sees people as resources to be used and not human beings as a means to an end. Companies might make more money from specialists who know nothing but their task, but human beings suffer greatly from a loss of purpose and a variety in their lives. In fact, it is exactly for this reason that more advanced economic models attempt to capture this phenomenon of human emotion and account for it. Unfortunately, most of them still come up short. But they are getting better, because we no longer live in a world where specialization is our guiding principle. We never have, in fact, and some people don't seem to realize that. There are plenty of people who would apply this idea of specialization and generalization to the ways that we did things in the past, often to use it as an explanation for why women should be working at home and in the kitchen, while men should be going out to work and getting a salary, using a pseudo-scientific explanation for why gender norms exist. Men are the hunters and protectors, and women are the gatherers and the homemakers, and that's why society succeeds. That's what they might say, even though most of society was built upon the fact that men were not hunters. They were farmers who raised livestock and crops, a task which is a lot closer to gathering and homemaking than hunting and protecting. Couple that with the fact that we often find tools to make those types of important tasks more efficient, and we end up not really needing specialization at all to survive. In fact, we've invented powerful tools for learning new things, which allow human beings to become specialists in a wide variety of different things these days. Because while life might be too short to waste it doing any one particular thing, it is also far too long to be doing that one particular thing. And I know there are plenty of people who are going to tell me that I'm wrong in the comments section and try to tell me that a specialist can still do other things, just that they are the best at the one thing they choose to be an expert in. I know that, and that's why no one's a true specialist, and why the concept of specialization is generally stupid. Human beings are not a series of stats which we can optimize, and that's the point. We are not self-contained to any single moment of our lives, and we are not the same person throughout our entire lives. Therefore, we should not be doing the same task throughout our entire lives. The David Goggins of the world would probably tell you that putting maximum effort into anything and everything you do is a recipe for greatness, and that we must work hard and put ourselves on the grind to achieve true fulfillment. However, that is something which can fulfill the David Goggins of the world. Not everyone is fulfilled by breaking their kneecaps over long-distance marathons. Not everyone can achieve happiness simply by putting their nose to the grindstone and digging deep. Sometimes people will break themselves by accident in an attempt to form themselves into something they never wanted to be in the first place. My advice, which you can take or leave by the way, is to remember that not everything in life needs to be done the best. Not everything you do or attempt to do needs to be successful, nor does it need to have an outcome which proves you're successful to others. You should do things which make you happy and fulfilled every now and then. And no, that doesn't mean sit at home playing video games all day and never showering. It means choosing your battles. It means picking things up for the fun of it rather than what it can do for you. It means enjoying life instead of chasing an ideal which is unachievable and always will be. Much like a true specialist, the ideals we look upon and strive towards are often unachievable and unrealistic. What is the point of life if you do not choose to live it every now and then? So, if you're the type of person who feels as if they must provide some sort of value to the world, or someone who needs to be the best at the one thing they choose to do in their life, ask yourself one thing. Has this ever made you happy? And if it did, then remember when and why it made you happy. If you're feeling burnt out, or that you've lost your purpose, or that you are worse than you used to be, then find the joys of learning something new. Get out of your comfort zone as a specialist and become a generalist. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more, then click on my channel and watch some of my other videos. And if you want to be notified of when new videos come out, then subscribe and hit the bell icon. If you have a few dollars lying around, then also be sure to hit the join button, as it helps me make more videos like this one. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you in the next one.